Now we hand over to Samuel Bouvet.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me well?
Perfectly
And fine. You do see the presentation, I think.
Yes.
All right. So let's get going. So thank you very much, Mathieu, for this very nice introduction. I'm gonna switch gears now and talk more about the other aspect of our company, which is sales. And I'm gonna talk about my journey to becoming a channel partner manager, which is one specific aspect of the sales role that we have in our company. You might be more familiar with the technical specialist that is coming into your lab to talk about the products. So this is not the sales role that I have, but I will present that more. So more about me first. So Samuel Bouvet was born some time ago in Normandy. Normandy is a very beautiful region here on the west of France. Here in the west of France. And interestingly enough, it has been awarded as one of the 10 places to visit before dying by the New York Times. So this was a very big hit in Normandy, actually. Everybody was super proud of it, that Americans consider Normandy as one of the places to visit. So I encourage you to come visit us if you ever come to France or to Paris. It's very close to Paris, like 2 hours drive from Paris. So it's very convenient. So anyway, I did most of my studies in Paris. So I first moved from Normandy to this city called Lyon well, for me, it's south of France, but for people in the south, it's north of France. So it's in the middle of France. Lyon for doing 2 years, well, classe préparatoire. So it's very French preparatory classes for going to the concours, to going into the university afterwards. So then after 2 years, I moved back to Paris, where I did most of my studies. So regular courses, license and master. I did 2 different masters. I will talk about it later, followed by a PhD, some internship in France and abroad. After the PhD, I then moved to Geneva for a postdoc. So we were talking about postdoc or not postdoc. So I made a decision to do a postdoc. I'll explain why I decided to go for a postdoc. And after a little bit more than 2 years, I then moved back to Paris, where I started the second part of my career in a non-academic background. So I now live in Paris. What I like, gardening. So I have a chance to have a big terrace, and now it's really sunny. So it's pretty nice to stay outside and enjoy the sun. I like fooding, grilling. So this is the last grilling we did on Easter Eve. Lots of food, lots of friends, lots of wine. Fun fact, I have also an addiction to gin. So I do own more than 10 bottles that are not yet empty of different gins and of course the tonics that are going together with. So this is a little bit about me, my education. So as I said, I did most of my studies in Paris. So in a school that's called AgroParisTech, where I have a master's degree. So we call this engineering degrees in France. So it's applied science in basically science applied for biotechnologies, pharmaceutics, cosmetology, biotech, so on and so forth. So lots of fermentation involved in these 2 years. At the end of those 2 years, so I had a 6-month internship in Sanofi Pasteur. So I don't know if you are familiar with this company. Sanofi Pasteur is a branch of Sanofi Aventis that is developing vaccines. And they are one of the leader in vaccine production worldwide, mostly focusing on the viral disease such as influenza. And there I had the internship into the quality departments, and my role was to qualify a new qPCR instrument for doing quality testing on the vaccines. So basically making sure that the strain that is supposed to be in the influenza vaccine is the correct one, and that there is no contamination with the cells that we are using to produce the vaccine, because the vaccines are produced in chicken eggs. If you are not aware of it, they make sure that there is no chicken DNA into the vaccine, because this is not what we want to be vaccinated against, obviously. After this internship, I moved to a master in virology in Paris University, so fundamental research in virology. This was a 1-year studies, and then I did an 8-month internship in the Rockefeller University in New York. There I worked on the hepatitis C in the lab of Dr. Charles Rice. For those of you who are a little bit familiar with science and news, Dr. Rice got the Nobel Prize last year for his discovery and his role into he put in place basically a system to work with the HCV in vitro cell culture of HCV that helped into finding the cure that we now have for HCV. So this was a great internship, meeting with lots of people worldwide. As you can guess, because this is a Nobel Prize lab, this is a huge lab with more than 40 people in it. So it's not something that has any equivalence in France, or probably not in Austria. I don't know how the Austrian labs are organized, but I'm pretty sure it's not 40 people there. After that, I've decided to do a PhD. So I already knew from this first master that I wanted to go into the industry. And when interacting with people in Sanofi Pasteur, they told me that it was important for having management or good position into the pharmaceutical industry to have a PhD. So this is why I decided to do a PhD still in Paris for 3 years at Institut Jacques Monod in cell and molecular biology. And after this PhD, I moved to a postdoc in Geneva, as I was saying. So the decision to go or not go for a postdoc, it's very important. I decided to do a postdoc because, again, after the master and after the PhD, I talked to people into the biotech and the pharmaceutical industry. Talked to many people and asking them, what do you think about my profile? Would I be able to get the position in your company? And the answer was yes, but we would prefer you to validate the PhD with, not validate, but to complement the PhD with a postdoc experience. At the time, I didn't understand exactly why the PhD was not enough to have a position in the pharmaceutical industry. But then when I started the postdoc, I understood that actually the PhD, as it was taught in France, was, taught in France 10 years ago, was actually not sufficient enough for getting a management position into the private sector. So I'm happy that I actually did the postdoc. But really, the choice depends on whether or not you would like to keep on going with research, whether or not you would like to go into this or that sector. So again, talking to people into the type of industries that you would like to work is something that's fundamental. And so that's why also I'm happy to share with you my experience. Yeah. During all my studies, I also had the chance to have a grant for the government. So I was paid for doing my studies, basically, which really helped because my parents were not able to afford these long studies. So this was something that really helped me. So a brief introduction about my scientific background. So I did the PhD in cell and molecular biology at Institut Jacques Monod. There, I studied the role of the GTPase, the small GTPase proteins in intracellular trafficking, and especially in the trafficking to the lipid droplets, that are those lipid storage vesicles into the whole cell stack. You also have big lipid droplets into the adipocytes that are responsible for our, little bellies. It was really interesting. So what the technology that I use is mostly cell cultures and cell transfection. I did a lot of cloning. to be able to have fluorescent tagged proteins that I was then studying by the microscopy, and also lots of biochemistry, so purifying this and this domains of the protein and to see what is their interactions with lipid in vitro. So of course, then I had a publications. I'm not going to share here because it's not the point here. And then during the postdoc, so basically I wanted to have an easy postdoc because I knew I didn't want to stay for that long, but I wanted to validate the postdoc with the publication pretty quickly. So I decided to keep on the same proteins and the same fundamental biologics, but apply it to a different application into the cell. So then the role of those intracellular trafficking into the phagocytosis, and especially how the snares and the G proteins are replicated into what we call membrane contact sites between the reticulum and the phagocytosis to allow presentation of the antigen and cross-presentations of the antigens. So for this, we use the primary cell cultures, so mouse-derived dendritic cells from bone marrow. Again, lots of microscopy because this is what I liked doing at the time, and lots of cloning to have all these fluorescent proteins tagged. Unfortunately, this project that I started in Geneva was bigger than I expected, and the publication is actually going to be so the article is going to be published this year. So I've just read the draft of the publication from my colleagues. So then another postdoc came in to finish my project that I've initiated. But I've decided to move on from this postdoc. Basically, I did the PhD and the postdoc on my side was to have a scientific experience and a scientific background that would be recognized by the peers. But I knew that I didn't want to be a researcher. I was a bad researcher. I knew that this was not my calling. And I had the chance to join a startup company that a friend of mine was starting at the time, called Accubance. This was a very exciting project. So we worked on this dosy kit. So it's a complete lab on the field. And what this lab is doing, it was able to have a dosimetry of the external irradiation based on the hair samples that you plucked from the patient. And this was intended for armies in case of nuclear events like nuclear power plant exploding or nuclear bombs accident, to be able to screen and to triage the patients or the people that were on the site to see which one of those have been severely irradiated to procure first care treatment, and those who have not been irradiated but are still in shock. So those people are presenting the same symptoms, but that they don't need to have to receive a heavy treatment against irradiation because they are not irradiated. So this was the project. So we built this prototype that we've actually tested in submarines in Toulon, in the south of France, in an exercise where they gathered a lot of people implicated into the emergency response when in case of a nuclear accident. And we were one of those people. So there has this real life situation exercise. Of course, there was no accident. It was all fake, but it was tested by the French army and they liked it. However, a startup, as you may know, is high risk. You constantly need to raise new investments, new funding to get new partners into it. And eventually you need to sell these products. And this is where we had issues and we didn't succeed because we were lacking a commercial background. So we didn't have the right commercial and marketing presentation of our solution dosing kit. So scientifically and technically speaking, it was perfect and to the point. But because we were all PhDs with no commercial background, this was something that we lacked and we were not able to do. So this is why after a year and a half working in Accubance, I decided to move on and to join a sales and commercial company. And I joined Takara in 2017 as a sales export developer. So I was there in charge of the distribution network. So this is very specific sales activity in which you manage people or companies to sell your product. So, for example, we have companies in different countries that are reselling our products. The idea is to provide them some support, some guidance, some technical information for them to be able to sell efficiently our solutions into their market. So this is indirect sales because you are not talking to the directly the end user or the users of the product, but you are talking with the people who are reselling the product to the end user. So it's very interesting. I learned a lot about the sales and commercial background, and also about the company. And 2 years later, in late 2019, late 2019, I started to onboard the tender management with one assistant. And this led to the creation of a new inside sales department at Takara Europe since, last year, but formally from this January, with 2 inside sales representatives that are in my team that I'm able to manage. And we've decided also to regroup the inside sales and the technical support. So technical support now is together in a big team that we are calling sales and technical support. So we have 3 technical support specialists. You will hear from Ben about the specificities of this role. In order to make this jump from being a channel partner manager to leading this team, sales and tech support, I did providing support on all levels to our customers and our sales team. I did a Master of Business Administration, MBA. So this is the school, it's a French management school that I started in March 2020. So that was not a good idea, but I didn't know at the time. So it was an MBA done mostly online, which was not the best experience, but at least I learned a lot from my peers and from the expert in the program. And I've completed this master actually this year. I will be completing in September this year actually with the final report on actually management of the inside sales. So this is how I reached to this level. And with this, that's the end of my presentation. So I will happily take questions from you guys if you have some.
Thank you, Samuel. It was very exciting. And thank you also for sharing some personal details. And the food looked delicious. I'm hungry now.
I know, right?
The mussels.
Come to Normandy. Come to Normandy. Not only great landscape, but also great food.
Actually, EPEC conference, I think, is in France this year, and we go there. My boss told me before. And I think it's near a very nice region in France. Yeah. We have some questions, and please also for the other people, state the questions in the chat. I think I missed this in the beginning. How did you for yourself find out that the science is not your destiny or your way to go? So to be a scientist, let's call it like that.
Well, I consider myself as a scientist, nonetheless. It's just I'm doing science differently in the sales environment. Okay. I knew that I was not a good researcher, which needs to have. This is a job that you need to have a calling for. That's how I see it. You need to be dedicated to your project. I'm not the most innovative guy, so having new ideas and finding new concepts, this is not the strength that I have. So I knew that this was not something I wanted to do. And I also, so I liked being at the bench during my PhD and my postdoc, but ultimately I wanted to leave the bench and go a little bit away from the bench. So this is why I decided to leave the academic research to do science differently. And actually with a PhD, there's hundreds of possibilities that are open to the young scientists. And I don't know how it's organized in Austria, but in France, we rarely talk about it. So when people are starting a PhD, there's always the ultimate goal to being a researcher and to work in the universities or research institute. But actually, in France, only half of those PhD are actually working in the academic, and half of those are working abroad. So it can be bank, it can be biotech, it can be pharmaceutical. but it can be also sales and marketing, as we've just presented here.
Here they scare the young people with the overqualified phrase. Then you're overqualified and you will not find it.
This is not true, because as a PhD, I mean, one of the great strengths and skills that we have is adaptability. Yes. So we're able to adapt to many different contexts and environment, and this is what companies are looking for. Now they realize that PhD is a great training, is a great education for many different activities in the company, not only doing research.
Mm. Resilience. You develop also resilience.
Perseverance. Yeah.
Would you? There is a question from Anna Schrem from the SEM, Center for Experimental Molecular Medicine from Vienna. Would you recommend doing an MBA if one is interested in going into industry management in industry? So is it, you think, a must?
It's not a must. It's not a must. You can have a very good career into the sales without MBA. I did it because I wanted to go further into the understanding of the business administration and the management of the sales team. But this is not a must. I mean, you can have a great career without having an MBA. It helps, of course, but not a must. And if you were to do MBA, better to do it a bit later when you have more experience into the sales. So I did it a bit too early in my career. I should have done it like a year or two later.
Mm-hmm. You said that you were at this startup and the commercial section was quite poor, so to say. And then you switched to sales. Was it because you wanted to learn something about this? Why was this? How was this switch from this scientific or research startup then to sales? What was your motivation? That's
exactly it. The idea was to learn how to sell things and then go back to the startup and actually sell the product that we've worked on to develop. It turned out that I really liked Takara and I didn't want to leave any longer. and I kept on doing my career at Takara. But the idea was to complement my scientific expertise with a second type of expertise, which was sales. And I didn't want to do any further studies at the time. I revised my judgment afterwards, but after the postdoc, I said, okay, that's enough degree. And I want to learn it by doing rather than going back to school.
Very nice, very nice. Maybe last question, which skill sets and which soft skills do you think you need for your actual job?
Good question. I want to talk about that. Adaptability, this is something really important, especially when dealing with channel partners. In our situation, we have channel partners in all Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So adaptability is important to be able to talk to different people with different cultural background. That's very important. Perseverance, you need to keep on asking and going back to the people with different questions that you may have. And actually a good salesman is somebody who is perseverant, highly perseverant, not necessarily having the best communication skills, but is able to not forget anything. And the last thing is, of course, time management. This is one of the most important skills that you want to have if you want to be a good, or if you want to have a career in the sales. Time management, this is great. And all those three skills are things that you are developing when doing a PhD. So
right.
It's easy transferable.
And then the last question, I like to state this now because I think it's nice to have it comprehensively together. Your daily tasks in one sentence.
answering
very easy question.
Most of my time is answering emails, solving problems, and answering phone and meetings like this one, but talking about our products with customers.
We got a very nice overview. Thank you very much.